Hello and welcome to Game Brigade. My name is Brian. Today we are going to talk about the 8 games that I could never see leaving my collection. Now, I should say that there are some caveats to this list. This is not a top 8 list in terms of my overall rankings, because there are a lot of games that I could say I enjoy over some of these. But these are games that have consistently been fun or have some sort of deeper meaning for me or fill a niche that I find kind of hard to fill sometimes. So I have kind of collected some of the games around my office and decided to present to you my 8 games I would never get rid of. Now, this is actually very hard to make this list because there's a ton of incredible games that I originally would think would make this list. Chronicles of Drenagor, Nemesis, Terraforming Mars, Marvel Dice Throne. There are so many different games that I would say could be on this list or arguably should be on this list, especially on top of some of the ones that I have selected here today. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as I present the games. So again, no particular order, just the games that I really enjoy. So starting off the bat, let's go with Risk, Game of Thrones. I can't even tell you who made this game. It could be like Milton Bradley. Doesn't even say. You know, that's kind of funny. There's literally no branding on this box of who made the game. And there's nothing on the back. I had someone in one of my last videos said, hey, show us the backs of your boxes. And I was like, there's nothing on the back of the box to show. Here's another one. Nothing back there. But why am I saying this game, Risk, Game of Thrones, not leaving the collection? For one, it's beat to hell. You can see this has been in my collection for a long time as it is. But Risk has meant something for me and my gamer group since I was a child. I've talked about this before, but Risk was really the first board game that I played, and I only played Risk. Like when I was a child, like 7, 8, all the way up basically through college, Risk was the only board game I played. Even when people were playing Catan and whatnot, I was still playing Risk. And I would say through college, this was my number one go-to game. And I have multiple different versions of Risk. I still have, and I thought about bringing it down, but it's up in storage upstairs. My original Risk that I bought when I was a child. It's like the first board game I ever bought on my own. It's like the 20th anniversary edition. It's beat to hell. That's why the reason I want to bring it down. But Risk has always been something that for my group is a kind of a love letter in terms of a game that we love. Not my current player group. This would be a game if I ever have my college friends come over and visit, or we're having some sort of reunion. They're going to want to play this. They could walk and see all these games, and I could do any type of convincing. But this is what they're going to want to play. So Risk. And Game of Thrones, I specifically brought this one out also because I enjoyed the variant that this provided. One, the theme that it's set in is a fun theme. I wish the IP was better in the last season, kind of ruined it for me. But the Game of Thrones IP worked really well for a Risk setting as it is. And so this really encapsulates with the leaders and the powers and and whatnot. So I enjoy that. It also is shorter than a lot of Risk games tend to be. So that is why I decided to pull this one off and send out some of the other variants that I have. And some of those other variants probably should go at some point, other than my original one and most likely this one. Let's do World of Warcraft. So here we have World of Warcraft, the board game by Fantasy Flight Games. You know, it's always amazing to me how many of my favorite board games are from Fantasy Flight. Even tabletop games, they are definitely a powerhouse in terms of making quality games. So here is the back for those of you who enjoy looking at the backs of the games. So this is an area movement dice rolling game, variable player powers as players pick different types of races in the World of Warcraft universe: paladins, shamans, humans. I mean, those are classes and races. But then you will be working together as you move across Lothrin and, World of Warcraft realms and vanquish enemies and bosses and eventually raid bosses. And would you know that I've never actually played this game? This is one I've talked about multiple times in videos in terms of favorite games, and I'm a huge World of Warcraft player. I've played that game since vanilla, and definitely really enjoy having this in my collection, especially because it's a Grail game and it's incredibly hard to find. This game is part of those games that I would love to own, even if I never play them, which would be StarCraft, Forbidden Stars, and World of Warcraft, the board game. Those are 3 games that I have wanted in my collection. I obviously now have the World of Warcraft version. I'm still hunting down StarCraft, and I would love to get the expansions as well. But I'm still hunting down StarCraft, still hunting down Forbidden Stars. I actually made a big boo-boo. I had an opportunity to pick up Forbidden Stars this week, and I didn't do it. And now I'm biting myself in the butt. And those titles might have made this video if I owned them, but they don't. So this is a game I picked up at a board game swap, and I was incredibly lucky to find it, and very happy to own it. I've tried to play this game. So don't say that I'm not trying to tempt it. I have tried to play it, but the people in my current player group aren't as interested in it, and the people that I tried to get to play with it were a little intimidated by the rules. So still hoping to play it at one point in my life, but it's definitely a game that will stay up on my shelf, up in its rightful place. So Twilight Imperium, no box back for this one because it's just a lid. So Twilight Imperium, why? Okay, actually, let's start off with this one. Let's start over. This one will have an asterisk next to it because Twilight Imperium does have the possibility of leaving my collection. And that would only be if Twilight Imperium 5 comes out and it's as good as 4. Twilight Imperium is a game that is hard to table. It's a 4X game where players will be taking on a different species. There are, I think, there's a lot. There's maybe almost 20 species now with the expansion pack that I have. I can't say for certain. It's quite a bit of species. And you'll be choosing one of these random species. They have an asymmetrical player power, which is basically a species ability that makes them unique. They have different types of tech that they can science into, and their home starting planet is different than all the other ones. And so they have a different kind of theme. And I do enjoy that. Even though there's subtle changes to each race, they are very well balanced in the sense that they all feel very different when you're playing them. So Twilight Imperium is a game, though, as I said, it's hard to table. It's about an 8 to 12 hour game time session in a normal average game. I generally try to play this game at minimum 5 players. I have played 4. Most likely I like 6+ players if we can do it. It's just hard to get that many people to commit for an all-day event. And when we do get this to the table, though, it creates incredible memories. It's one of the most fun experiences I could ever imagine. And I just enjoy the game and the environment that it provides when I'm playing it. So Twilight Imperium 4th edition with the expansion, The Prophecy of Kings, is in this. And those will stay in my house until it is replaced by something better of the same IP. Let's throw that down there. Next on the list, we've got Company of Heroes, the board game. Here's the back. It's kind of dark because my lights are super high. So there's Company of Heroes, the board game. Now this one is on Kickstarter as of the time of this filming, the 2nd edition. This is obviously the 1st edition, and I haven't reviewed this, but I do really enjoy Company of Heroes. And now that I've played 2nd edition, it just solidifies the fact that it's staying in my collection. So I will probably do a review of this once 2nd edition comes out and I've got more time to actually really dive into the new player rules. But Company of Heroes is a 1 versus 1 or team-based game. You can technically go up to 4 versus 4 if you had all enough components for everyone. And it's a war game based in World War II where players will be playing either the Axis factions or the Allied factions. The Axis being either the 2 German factions and Allied being Russians, Americans, and British. And it is a traditional war game where players are going to be moving across the battlefield, engaging each other, collecting resources, controlling victory points as you deplete your opponent's armies and gather a specific amount of points to win the game. This is based on the video game by Relic and Sega, and I would say the original version, 1st edition, was such a great true-to-word rendition of the video game. The only problem with it is it was kind of hard to play, a little clunky. Second edition has kind of revised those rules, kind of stepped away from being totally true to the video game in terms of some of the feels to it, but made it a better board game. The reason why this is not leaving my collection is one, it's incredibly unique. To be able to find the game with the minis that this has is hard to do, but the gameplay is so good compared with relation to the video game that I also love. I've got like almost 2,000 hours into the Company Heroes board game video game. So I already love this IP, and this one is so good at emulating that experience to the tabletop. So I have never found another World War II war game to be as good as this one, so that's why this one is staying in my collection. We've got just a few left. Let's go to this one because it's a piece of paper, because I don't have the box for this one, and that is Marvel Champions. So as you guys know, I have a full organized box of Marvel Champions, plus I have a little carry-all that I carry my player decks with. But Marvel Champions is a game that I originally poo-pooed on. I didn't want Marvel Champions, and a lot of people were talking about it, how much they loved it, and I said, no, I don't want it, resist it. But with a board game sale that was at my store, I decided to pick up some packs, and then I was able to get some packs through a sponsorship, and it was great to be able to play this game pretty much solo, and that's why I'm basically saying Marvel Champions is not leaving my collection. It is an incredibly good solo experience that I can play with just a single character, which is a big thing for me. I don't like two-fisting solo games, because then to me it just feels like you're playing a two-player game, but you're playing two different people. But you can play two-fisted if you want a little bit more variability with your play style, and I enjoy that it works well in that manner. So Marvel Champions is a game that I poo-pooed on, didn't want it, and as soon as I experienced it, it's actually become one of my highest played board games in my entire collection, because I play it the most. If there's a game that I'm going to play on my own, I will always default to Marvel Champions. And I thought about putting on this one on the list, but reality is it hasn't solidified itself yet into the hierarchy, and that was Lord of the Rings, the card game. But still, if I'm looking at Lord of the Rings and I'm looking at Marvel Champions, I'm still pulling off Marvel Champions off the shelf, which means it makes me wonder, how much do I want to invest more in Lord of the Rings? I don't know. I really love the IP as well. So that one is the next game. So we have 3 more left on this list. Let's pull this one over. And this one I would say was probably the hardest one for me to make my selection on. That is Kemet, Blood and Sand. And I say this one was the hardest one for me to do because I really, as I said, tried to be as intentional with this list as possible as I was making it. I wanted it to be very truthful. I think this one's all, yeah, look at that. See, I'm doing pretty good. You guys probably can't even see these backs, but there you go. I got to move the lights down a little bit so you guys can see better too. But Kemet, Blood and Sand, it is an area control war game set in ancient Egypt where players will be taking on a different, I guess you could say a god in Egypt, and you're going to be trying to control different temples through victory, basically combat as people try to move around, and eventually scoring variable points and secured victory points. I can't remember the term is right now. You have victory points that can be shifted around based on who owns territories, and you have victory points that are permanent. They can't be lost. And that's one of the aspects of why I really like Kemet, because the shifting of the lead can change so drastically. And even if you are winning and you've reached the winning victory point number, you have to maintain that victory point lead until it comes back to your turn. So it could easily be taken from you as players are trying to pull you away from the winning as they try to win themselves. It's really, really great. I also really like the combat aspect of this one, where everyone has the exact same cards that are affecting combat. All your units are the same. They're all 1 victory point. And based on the tiles that you purchase are going to change your faction to an asymmetrical faction. It can give you some bonuses with it. And then in combat, as I said, you have these cards that are all identical. You have to put one down to burn. That's going to go away until you use all your cards. And then you're all going to play a card from your hand. So there's a little bit of a bluffing aspect into this. And the other aspect in combat that I really like is that you have combat casualties. And so even if you win the fight, you might not even kill any of your opponent's units. You might just win the fight and then shove them out of the territory. So if you actually want to cause damage to your opponent, you have to cause them casualties, which is indicated by a little blood drop on those cards. So I think there's a lot of interesting strategic elements in this. You've got the economy issues with the tiles, where you're purchasing those tiles, making your asymmetricalness, but then you also got the strategic value of the area control. So this is a game that I heard a lot of great things from people. I picked it up. It has come probably my most played area control game. I thought Ankh would beat it out, but this has still beaten out Ankh repeatedly in terms of plays because it plays better at 5 players, which is where we like to play. We like playing this at max player count. It is made up to 6 players, but that 6-player expansion is not out yet. I would probably play this at 6 players if it was available. Okay, so this is an interesting one because I actually just bought this again. I sold, oh my gosh, it's like overfilling. It's like overfilling. I got this thing so full of stuff and it was kind of falling out there. So we have Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring, 2nd edition. Now I just sold my 1st edition copy of this as well as my Battles in the Third Age expansion. And I sold that because War of the Ring is an incredible game. It's a 1 versus 1. You could say it's a up to 2 versus 2. It does say 2 to 4, but it's really a 1 versus 1 experience where one player will be playing Sauron and the armies of Shadow, and the other player will be playing the free people, the humans, the elves, the dwarves, as they battle for Middle Earth, as the hobbits also try to make their way to Mount Doom to throw the ring into the volcano. This has been an incredible representation of the IP, really bringing the story to the board game. And what I love about this is it's one of those games that I truly have fun like when I'm playing. I feel like a kid when I play this. We start saying quotes from the movies. You start just feeling giddy and things are happening. And I sold my 1st edition copy. I didn't really want to sell it. I wanted to keep it forever because I really did enjoy that one. But I didn't want to open my expansion pack because it held too much value for it being sealed, the Battles in Third Age. But I wanted to expand the game. And unfortunately, when they made 2nd edition, they changed the card sizes. So I actually had to relent and sell my 1st edition copy and pick up the War of the Ring 2nd edition. But luckily, this didn't really cost me anything because selling my 1st edition plus that expansion pack effectively paid for 2nd edition as well as all the expansions. So this has been an incredible experience. I usually take this when we go camping to our cabin. And because it's quiet, it's long, I can enjoy my 1 versus 1 player on the kitchen table and really enjoy this moment. So this is War of the Ring by, I think, Ares Games. So the last one, and this one I could say could also be a caveated with this one, and I'll talk about why, and that's Too Many Bones by Chip Theory Games. Too Many Bones is an adventure game where you're going to be playing as different gearlocks, these little guys here on the cover, as you are customizing your character by increasing their skills that are unique to each gearlock because they're very asymmetrical. They have very different roles they play. Now, this is a dice rolling game where you're going to be rolling dice to get different types of results to affect the board that you're battling on. You're going to be battling on a board that's kind of an abstract representation of a battle board, and everything is using poker chips to represent the characters on the field as well as their health totals. This one is a caveated, I would say. I would never sell it because I own everything. But I could see if this one was one that I just had the base game, it had just the base 4 characters. After I've experienced it, if I wasn't planning on getting more, I could eventually see this one leaving the collection at some point because it does, the adventures can get repetitive because you're drawing cards, you're reading text, and at some point you're like, okay, I've read this text 30 times. I know what the outcomes are, and I'm just going to, at that point, it's just a battler. But because I own all of the content, I have a lot of different gear locks to play with. I have a bunch of different baddies to experience, and I have a bunch of different end bosses that I can eventually go against, which change the environment. And also their end battle, the final battle, is extremely unique. There is a final Kickstarter coming for this one, Unbreakable, I believe it's called. So that'll also expand this one out. Too Many Bones has been one of my favorite games as it is. I really enjoy the experience. It's just a real bear to learn and to teach and to bring people in. It's almost like a lifestyle game because there's so many different rules that you have to remember that it's not complicated. It's just that there's a lot to learn. And so almost every time I have to play, I have to go back to that Lonely Man BG's YouTube channel and watch his whole tutorial series on how to play, because it is definitely difficult. This one, I can show you the back if you'd like. Kind of see that. I'm really sorry about the lighting. The lights are so high. I got a new studio setup, by the way. I don't know if I've really talked about that, but I have a whole new studio setup that I'll be showing off in a video when I do a studio tour, as soon as I kind of get things cleaned up in here. So that was it. These are 8 games that I will never leave the collection. I really enjoy these games quite a bit, or I enjoy the thought of owning these games. I would love to keep adding games. There's still some games that I haven't played that I would say almost made this list because they're kind of grail games, kind of like World of Warcraft. That would be Shadows over Camelot. I have never played that game, but I own that game and I love that game. Love looking at it. I've also got Wiz War. It's another one that I'd probably never get rid of. There's just so many. But because I haven't played some of these games, I felt like it would be kind of disingenuous to have a bunch of games never played on this list. And you guys would probably give me a bunch of shit for it. So I decided to just do the one and say, give me some slack. So that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. This is Brian from Game Brigade. I appreciate you guys staying for the end. Thank you so much. I will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.